The Canadian housing crisis gets crazier and crazier with each month that passes by. With rents hitting all-time highs, housing prices continuing to go up even in the face of higher interest rates, and federal officials telling people that yes, we are going to make houses more affordable, but don't worry, if you already own one, we're not going to affect the value of your home. Which is like looking at you straight in the eye and asking, do you believe in unicorns? And hoping that the answer is yes. But before I get into it, my name is Nolan Matthias, and if you want the latest Canadian real estate news, this is the place for you. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button so more people like you can see this video. And if you think you're already subscribed, double check, make sure that you are, because this channel is not to be confused with my other channel, the one that is now more targeted to more general wealth building strategies. So make sure that you actually are in fact subscribed to this channel. Okay, so let's jump into the headlines and talk about what's going on in the Canadian real estate market, because this one is a doozy. It gets crazier and crazier every single day. Check out this headline. Canada wants to make homes more affordable without crashing prices. They actually believe, or they at least believe that they can say to Canadians that they are going to maintain the values of people's properties while making more properties that are more affordable. And don't worry, if we make all those houses more affordable, it's not going to crush the value of yours. This is absolute absurdity, because as soon as you create more affordable options for more people, guess what happens? The demand for the property that you own will go down, and subsequently the value will also go down. So the fact that the federal government is even suggesting that they can do this is absolute absurdity. And I'm not sure if they actually believe that they can do it, or if they're just trying to pull another one over on the voter base. But literally what they're saying to the voter base, the ones that can't afford a home and the ones that already own a home, is don't worry, we got you covered, when what they're suggesting is actually impossible. So regardless of what is happening here, they are lying to at least one side of the voter base. Hopefully you are not on the side that they're lying to. And it's stuff like this that is largely why the Liberal government is being blamed for the affordability crisis. Now, I'm politically agnostic. I don't care. Of course, I'm an economist, so I'm fiscally conservative. But at this point, this is a problem that goes back to the 1970s, and I'll show you that in a second. This is not a problem that developed in the last 8 years. This is a problem that has been brewing for quite some time. So to put the target square on the Liberal government's back is somewhat ridiculous. But at the same time, they sure as heck haven't done much to help Canadians. And even though Chrystia Freeland wants to tout the first-time home savings account as part of the solution to the housing crisis, the reality is this is not a solution. Yes, it is a nice thing for first-time homebuyers to have, but it is essentially a giant rounding error in the grander scheme of the affordability problem that we have. Because even if somebody can save a significant amount of money even faster than they could have previously in order to have a down payment, if they can't keep up at the rate that they need to save, and once they get to the point of actually having a down payment, they can't afford the payment because of higher interest rates and the higher cost of housing, well, it doesn't matter how fast they can save the down payment. So the first-time home savings account is not the solution. And neither is reducing immigration. Because if we reduced immigration, we're going to start the same sort of problem for the greater economy that we are facing right now in the real estate sector. Because as an economy, we need to always make sure we are continually growing. And one of the most important aspects of growth in the Canadian economy is immigration. So this is not something that we can shut down and slow down, because if we do, it will create substantially bigger problems down the road, far greater than our housing affordability problem. It would actually create a declining economy that could see us in a very bad situation 10 or 15 years down the road. So giving up on immigration is not something that we can do. But I want to show you what the real problem is here. And a lot of people disagree with me on this. They think immigration is the problem, but it actually isn't the real problem. The real problem is this. It's that going back to 1975, Canada has not built enough homes. In fact, in 2022, they started the most new construction since 1976. Now, our population has grown every year since 1976, both from a births perspective and from an immigration perspective, but we've just chugged along and created the same amount of housing. And whether it was a Liberal government that was in place or a Conservative government that was in place, both parties definitely hold a piece of the blame for this, because they were both in power at different times throughout this period. And that is why there is a significant housing shortage in Canada. And when you take a look at the numbers here, going back to 1975, where there was almost always more than one house being built for each new immigrant, in the last 10 to 15 years, we've actually been bringing in more immigration than we've been building for. And as you can see from this graph, this was not a problem that started in the last couple of years. It is a problem that goes back to the early 2000s, and it's a problem that now that we have an influx of additional migration because of the reduced migration due to the pandemic, well, now we're in a situation where we're only building one home for every 4 to 5 new immigrants. And this is the real problem. The real problem is that we don't have enough supply of housing. The only way that we fix that problem is to incentivize people and builders and corporations to build more housing. And while the federal government tries to shift the blame to the provincial and the municipal governments, they actually have the two biggest levers with respect to housing, bar none. And those are the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation and taxes. Because the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation is not just a mortgage insurer, it's an institution that is designed to make housing more affordable. And that not only means providing insurance to Canadians when they put less than 20% down, but it also means providing financing to new home builders and to builders that are building purpose-built apartment rentals. And that's among other things that they do. So by doing things like lowering interest rates for builders so that they actually have the profit margins that make it attractive to build homes and build apartments, and then on the other side of things, doing something like reducing taxes or providing tax incentives for people and companies who take the risk of building properties and putting them up at a faster pace, well, that would have the most significant impact on our housing supply. And that would actually create the affordability that we need. Because if we do the opposite, which is reduce immigration, we have significantly greater impacts on the broader economy, which could potentially make the whole housing affordability problem a moot point when nobody wants to live here and we start to see Canadians leave to go elsewhere. So it's very clear that this is a supply side problem. It's not a demand side problem. Yes, we're bringing in more immigration, but at the end of the day, this is all about not having enough supply for the amount of people that need homes. And the problem with the current way that the government is facing this is that they're continuing to focus on the demand side of this equation by trying to create incentives for individuals to buy houses, by trying to make it easier for people to buy houses, and by focusing on affordability. And when they focus on affordability, what they're focusing on is trying to put more money in the pockets of people, which creates more demand. And when you create more demand, that increases the prices and doesn't solve the supply issues that we have. So what the government actually needs to do is they need to focus on creating more supply and working with corporations to create that supply. And while corporations aren't the voter base, if you want the desired result of having cheaper houses or more affordable houses, that's the route that we need to go. And the federal government, regardless of what they want to say, has every tool that they need in order to create the incentives needed to actually do that. But it's going to be hard for the Liberal government because they like to be perceived as putting money directly into the pockets of Canadians. But in order to do this properly, they're unfortunately going to have to put money in the pockets of corporations because that's who builds houses. And that is the thing that our economy at this moment needs more than anything else. Now, if you want to know more about what's going on in the Canadian economy, what's going on in Canadian real estate and mortgages, make sure you check out this video here.